Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to 29Bison's webinar series. We are really excited today to be joined by Erin Owen, who is going to help us figure out how to tame our monsters, those that are in our heads and some, I imagine, that are crawling out from under our beds. Timing couldn't be more perfect for this conversation. It is Halloween week. Halloween this year happens to fall on a full moon, a blue moon, and just a few days before what will undoubtedly be a momentous election. So, Erin, we are thrilled to have you joining us for this conversation as we try to wend our way through all of the stuff that is weighing us down and find a way to lighten our load a little bit. I am thrilled to have everyone joining us today. My name is Laura Queen. I am the founder and CEO of 29Bison. We are a management consulting firm, primarily mergers and acquisitions, transaction advisory services, and our work focuses specifically on human capital. Hence the reason that part of this conversation with Erin was inspired. We work with other partners and affiliates to help us make sure that we're providing really stellar services to all of the clients in our cadre of client customers. And as part of that conversation, very often we talk about things like coaching and executive leadership capability, and this is where Erin's expertise lies. So without further ado, I will introduce Erin and then I will let her take it away. Erin is an executive coach who draws on 25 years of professional experience, ranging from small business development training in developing countries to organizational change management and consulting for Fortune 200 companies. She's provided leadership and coaching for mid and senior level leaders and private business owners since 2004, including to Wharton Exec MBA and MBA students. Her work incorporates the latest research in neurobiology, while also quite uniquely drawing on thousands-year-old Eastern philosophies and practices. One of Erin's strongest saboteurs, her hyperachiever, drove her to seek multiple degrees, rise quickly as a high performer in the global consulting firm where she worked in her 20s and 30s. But the same nasty hyperachiever saboteur has caused her to crash and burn with anxiety and stress-induced illnesses, putting her in the hospital at one point and at another missing weeks of work. Thankfully, her sage perspective won out, giving her the courage to leave her corporate work and start her boutique executive coaching practice, which ultimately led her to be with us today to share more about a mental fitness model that will tame the scariest of monsters in your head and in your business. And Erin, before I turn it over to you, I will share with you and with our audience my saboteurs as we went through the pre-assessment were hyper-rational, restless, and hyper-vigilant. And in true keeping with my hyper-rational, the first thing I did was immediately go out and seek to understand more about what hyper-rational meant. So I come to this conversation with lots of curiosity and with an open mind and an opportunity to learn. So I am turning it over to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Laura. Thank you so much, Jason. Really thrilled to be here with you, with the whole 29Bison community. And those of you who didn't know, you were part of the 29Bison community. Now you know. I wanted to share first that this year has been a momentous year for me, and this mental fitness model that I'm going to share with you to tame the monsters in your head is really relevant to me and my family. These guys here are the center of my world, and before these two kids were born, my husband and I had a dream that this year we would take a family gap year, travel the world, share different cultures and experience with our kids to open their eyes beyond Philadelphia and the Fishtown neighborhood where we live. We decided in January 2020 that we were going to go for it. So we had already changed our work so that we could work virtually, the kids could do their schooling virtually, and then COVID hit. I went into deep grief, really grieving the loss of this dream. And if it weren't for this model that I'm going to share with you today, I would not have recovered, to be honest. This model I'm going to share with you today has helped me really turn around all the negative chatter of the saboteurs in my mind and use the sage powers of creativity and resilience and activation to find a new way forward. So the photo that you see here on the right is the day that we left on our journey. We're now in the middle of our totally reinvented version of a gap year. We're currently in Colorado for a couple months, and we're going to head to Costa Rica in mid-November. So I just plant the seed to give you an idea that the power of this model can really transform not only your performance in your business, but also how you are engaging in the life and the decisions that you make for you and those people you care about the most. So let's start with what the heck is mental fitness? So very simply, it is the ability, your capacity to handle anything that life throws at you with positivity, to quickly rebound away from negativity. And it's relevant and important across all areas of life, whether you're looking at how you perform at your work, how you are feeling in your mental, physical, emotional well-being, and also how you engage in your most important personal and professional relationships. You can think about it akin to physical fitness, right? When you are dealing with everyday life stressors, it's like the ability to walk up your average size hill. Like you can do it without even thinking about it. You don't run out of breath. But a year like we've had this year with COVID and economic challenges and political ups and downs and social injustices coming to light and extreme weather events, everything that's been happening, you need to be able to scale a mountain with ease. And so building stronger mental fitness is akin to building stronger physical fitness, and you've got to strengthen your mental muscles, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So my intention is not only to share with you the model, but to help you understand the 3 core mental muscles that you need to build to be your most resilient and positive, and also to share with you, if you want to move forward and learn more about how to strengthen your mental fitness, I'll tell you more about the 6-week foundational course and how you can take advantage of that. But ultimately, I need to be my strongest and most resilient for all the roles that I play in my life. So do you, and we all need to be, right, to help this world get back on its feet and to help each of us really succeed in our business and find great happiness in our life. So the foundation of positive intelligence, which is the name of this mental fitness model, is the synthesis of 4 breakthrough areas of science over the last 10 years. And the first of these, neuroscience, is the one that I've really taken a deep dive in the past 4 or 5 years with my own professional development, helping clients break through barriers in their thinking. And then also positive psychology, cognitive psychology, and performance science. And these 4 come together along with original research that was done by the positive intelligence team to create what we now know are the core factors that we need to strengthen. And I'm going to share more about that with you today. So the results that you are working with that benefit all of us and that feed into the 6-week course came from work with hundreds of CEOs and their executive teams, Stanford students, which was the basis for the research, was Shirzad Chamine, the author and creator of this model where he was based, world-class athletes, as well as more than 500,000 people in 50 countries. And it's growing, by the way, it's more than this now. Sales and operations teams, HR people, you name it. Everyone at every level of the organization has been involved in this research. And if you want to dive in more to the research and also the neuroscience and geek out on the neuroscience like I like to, definitely grab a copy of the book. It's been translated into 20 languages. It's a bestseller. It's a great, great thing if you haven't already started to read it. So the secret sauce behind this research is something called factor analysis. And to help you understand what the heck is factor analysis, it's similar to colors. So if you look at the root of anything, any problem you're trying to solve, you will find its core essence. And it radically simplifies what it is. So when you're looking at colors, at the root of thousands and thousands of colors that a painter might want to use to paint a landscape or a portrait, there are only 3 factors or 3 colors. We've got red, blue, and green. So with positive intelligence, the research looked at what are the core elements, right? The simplest elements that we can get down to really understand how to strengthen our mental fitness. And so what we learned is that there are only 3 core muscles. This first is saboteur interceptor, right? Your ability to catch that nasty character in action. The second is your sage, right? Your wisest, most positive part of your brain. And the third is your self-command muscle. So I'm going to share more about each of these as we go through the presentation today. So what are the saboteurs? Well, through the research, we found out that there are only 10 saboteurs. That might sound like a lot, but it's not like 17 emotional intelligence competencies or 50 different general competencies that you need to grow as a leader. You only need to tackle and weaken subset of these 10 saboteurs. And on the sage side, there are 5 sage powers that include things like empathy and creativity. And we'll talk a little bit more about these today. But let's dive in first to saboteur interceptor. This is the nasty guy This is the biggest, baddest guy. This is the judge. Everybody, universally across the planet, everyone has the judge, and this is your strongest saboteur. And this guy has 3 different primary modes of trying to disrupt your life. The first is judging you. So I'm sure you're aware of your self-critic. I had a client who called this the itty bitty shitty committee, right, in your brain that are constantly trying to critique you. The itty bitty shitty committee, your judge, is constantly telling you you're not doing well enough, you're not doing it fast enough, you haven't produced enough results, you haven't earned enough money, you don't have the right car, you're not in the right house, like you're not wearing the right clothes, like on, critiquing your physique. The second mode of the judge, you're probably a little bit aware of. It's the fact that you're constantly judging others, sizing them up, assessing them, critiquing them. And this really gets in the way of pure, genuine connection. So this is a real troublemaker. The third factor of the judge you may not be as familiar with, and this is that the judge is constantly causing you stress by judging your circumstances, what is going on in your life and in the world around you. And let me tell you, this year, everybody's judged that third dimension of judging circumstances into high gear, judging COVID, right? When is it going to end? When is life going to get back to normal? And because of that, it's caused people to stall, to get stuck, to have anxiety, to wake up in the middle of the night. This judge is up to some nasty business. But it's not just the judge. It's also 9 different accomplice saboteurs: controller, hyperachiever, and restless, stickler, pleaser, and hypervigilant, avoider, victor, and victim, that is, avoider, victim, and hyper-rational. And if you are in a finance field, private equity, anything like that, most common saboteurs tend to be hyper-rational, controller, and hypervigilant. And if you're a business owner or you kind of struck out on your own, the restless tends to be in there because that's very common among the entrepreneurial side of people in finance. And if you're more on the financial advisory kind of client service side, pleaser actually tends to be pretty common. But ultimately, the mix of these saboteurs for you and others is similar to a fingerprint or a snowflake. It has its own unique pattern that really presents you to the world in a different way. And as we talk about these today, I'm going to dive in more deeply on 2 of these: controller and hypervigilant. Not only because it's pretty common among the community that 29Bison is a part of, but I have seen the strong voices of these saboteurs get louder, really turning up the volume during COVID with everything going on with the economy and with politics. So this is an example. If you've taken your self-assessment before today, you have your own set of results like this. This is an example. It's actually a real VP in a company, Sarah. I've adapted it slightly to present this to you for controller and hypervigilant. But what you can see is the 2 strongest of these are these 2 top ones. But then also right behind that is restless. And then behind that, you've got a tie of 6.3 with pleaser and hyperachiever. Some people have 10s, some have nothing above 5s, but usually I see a mix like this, where there's some in the 5 to 10 range, and then there's some below 5. So let's take a look at controller first. And what I want to share with you about controller is that there's actually, behind the dark side, there's a light side. So saboteurs are really the extreme version of your strengths. It's when your strengths are overused, they're abused, they're used in the wrong place at the wrong time with the wrong people. People who are hyper vigilant, we'll talk about that soon, tend to take that vigilance to an extreme, so they're constantly on edge looking for danger. With controller, there's so many amazing strengths. I want to look at my notes to make sure I capture all of them. Controllers tend to be on the strength side. They tend to be confident. They're action-oriented, really decisive. So we see this in a lot of leaders. They are not going to hesitate to challenge others and challenge the status quo, even challenge themselves to do better. They really have at heart the desire to do the right thing, even in the challenge, even in the face of pushback from others or even counter data in the market. And they really see the possibilities for what's possible. So leaders have the strength side of this unless they're overusing it and abusing it, in which case that's when the controller saboteur comes out. So you can see here some of the characteristics, the typical thoughts and feelings. What happens is that when controller is taking charge, the saboteur side of those strengths, it can actually create a situation where others are intimidated by you. that desire to kind of take charge and use that willful energy can actually create disruption in team and connection with others. And the thoughts that the saboteur controller try to bring up for you is that you've got to be in control all the time, or else, like, it is just not a good situation. And you really believe as a controller that if you work hard enough, you can get anything done. So the conditions of quarantine and COVID has been really disruptive and caused the controller voice to be really loud, causing a lot of anxiety and a lot of stress. So if you had this as one of your top saboteurs in your report, be sure and read the details so you can better understand. And let's now take a look at hypervigilant. So hypervigilant, not surprising, the strength of vigilance is there. And we do want vigilance. We want people who are going to be watching out for dangers and be keeping us safe, keeping us secure. But it's when that is gone to an extreme, especially under stressful events like we're currently experiencing, that it gets out of control, where that hypervigilant is just constantly anxious, expecting, something's going to go wrong. They're on the edge of their seat. They're waiting for the next shoe to drop. And when you are around someone who's in hypervigilant state, they're stressing you out all the time, right? It's no longer that person who's helping to take care of order and who's good at making sure that our systems and our institutions are in strong and solid condition. Instead, it's just really run amok. And what happens is that hypervigilant voice is really struggling with cynicism and skepticism, and that anxiety, as I said, is infectious. So again, there's a strength side to each of these saboteurs, which is what you want to bring into the light, but we have to weaken the negative side, the negative voices of the saboteurs, to bring those strengths more into the fore. So in looking at the saboteurs live in the parts of the brain that are supported by the survival parts of the brain, right? Our brainstem, the limbic system, and parts of the left brain. Contrary to that, the sage lives in very different parts of the brain. The middle prefrontal cortex, what Shirzad aggregates to be the empathy circuitry, which is a bunch of different parts of the brain, and also parts of the right brain. And again, if you want to take a deep dive into this like I do, there's a whole appendix in the book dedicated to this, so you can look at that. But for right now, what I primarily want you to focus on is the fact that you really have two brains. It's not just one organ in there. You're either operating in the negative, the saboteur, or in the positive, the sage. And if you're a Star Wars fan, you can think of this as the battle that's happening, the war that's happening inside your head between the Darth Vaders and the Jedi, right? So the dark and the light. And so maybe that'll help you bring this to light, that we really want to strengthen the Jedi factor, that Jedi master mindset that you have, and weaken all those darker Darth Vader parts of your brain. What is going on with saboteurs is that the saboteurs are using all range of negative emotion to try to motivate you in support of the saboteur's agenda. So whether it's anxiety, stress, fear, guilt, shame, insecurity, this is what's driving your behavior. Whereas sage is really drawing on the positive. It's more of a pulling you into what's great for you through the positive emotions of empathy and curiosity and passion and creativity, really ensuring that you're drawing on the best of who you are and cultivating your resilience. And here's the key. This is really important to understand when you're thinking about that battle between Jedi and Darth Vader, is that saboteurs, they might be able to push you and push you and push you to have great success and to earn a lot of money and to advance in your career and do great with your business, but they are not at all concerned about your happiness. So if you really are seeking to have peak performance, success in your life and your business, and have happiness, you want to be strengthening the sage, because this is what's going to give you that sustained happiness that goes along with the success that you have experienced, but maybe you haven't seen the happy side of it. And this is really common among my clients. I very commonly work with clients in their 40s and 50s who have had a high-performing, successful career. They've done very well financially, but they reach a point in their career where they're seriously unhappy and they have to make changes. And my hope is that today can act as a intervention. Let's get those monsters out from under the bed, out from your head, so that you can step into the strongest parts of who you are by strengthening your 3 core mental muscles. So a question that I often get is, are negative emotions good for you? And I do work on this in my coaching a lot with clients, because negative emotions are data points. They're things that you want to consider, right, when you're making decisions and you're figuring out how to respond, and also how to grow as a leader. But I'll answer this with another question, which is pain good for you? So if you're walking across the floor and you step on a tack, you want to find out immediately that you're stepping on a tack by that sensory relay, like telling your brain, ouch, I have pain. So you can lift your foot up, take the tack out. Same goes with this, right? If you have your hand on a hot stove, you don't want to put it there for more than a second. You want to quickly remove it. Otherwise, you're going to have burns, a first, second, 3-degree burns, and more damage. This is what we're talking about when it comes to negative emotions. You want to be able to detect the negative emotion, acknowledge it, and then quickly shift out of that into sage so that you're accessing your positive parts of your brain, your sage parts of your brain. And that's because negative emotions are only helpful for 1 second as an alert, right? It tells us that we need to pay attention to something. But if we stay there for longer than a few seconds, minutes, hours, days, months, some people I've talked to have been holding on to negative emotions for years and decades. This actually hurts our ability to see clearly. It prevents us from being able to respond using the best parts of who we are with these sage parts of the brain. And this is what we're talking about today, strengthening those mental muscles so you can be shifting out of negative emotion into the positive and into the sage. So whenever you feel or detect a negative emotion, think of that as your saboteur interceptor. That is a signal that a saboteur is at play, trying to mess with you. Those are nasty characters trying to mess with you. All right, let's take a look next at sage. Sage is amazing. It lives in the parts of the brain associated with positive emotions, peace and calm. Did you notice I slowed myself down? I got a little more grounded, shifting into sage. And just laser clear-headed focus. And you know this, you've been in this. You can think of it as being in your sweet spot. You can think of it as being in the zone. As world-class athletes, professional athletes, they get in the zone, they are in the best possible place, right? Your creativity is accessible when you're here, and you're able to really see the big picture so that you're not caught up in the stressful details that are right in front of you. You can pause, step back, take a breath, reflect, and see what's really most important, what's most salient to focus on to make the best decisions that you can make as you move forward. And the sage uses what's called the sage perspective. And what that is it's surprisingly maybe, but it's that every single outcome or circumstance, no matter what it is, can be turned into a gift and opportunity. So if you're sitting there thinking, going, okay, yeah, this is the fluffy stuff, it is not. So I'll give you an example. Going back to the late 70s, there was a mother whose daughter was killed in a drunk driving accident. And out of that, she formed the organization that we now know to be MAD, Mothers Against Drunk Driving. Now, at the time, that mother, she certainly was not in a place of gratitude about her loss of her daughter. It's just an incredible tragedy and nobody wants to experience. But out of it, she created this nonprofit that now provides education, builds awareness, provides victim services for people who are victims of drunk driving accidents. So the gift, the opportunity that came out of that tragic event is incredible. So that's a large scale example, but this can happen in your everyday world, where perhaps there's something happening where you're not able to jump on a call because your Wi-Fi goes out or something. But then that then allows you to pivot and work on a project that's really important that you want to give your attention and focus to. So the sage perspective, every outcome, every circumstance can be turned into a gift and an opportunity. So to bring this to light, I want to share a little bit about this story, the stallion story. This comes from the country of China, a country where I've lived, I've worked there. I did one of my graduate degrees in China, and I've studied a lot of ancient history. And this stallion story is about a farmer who raised horses in a small village. And this was during dynastic times, right, when there was an emperor ruling the land. And this farmer, among his horses, he had a prize stallion. This was a beautiful horse, fastest, strongest, and the farmer decided to enter this horse into a contest against other horses in the area, and his horse won the race. He won the contest, and his villagers, his neighbors were thrilled for him, right? They came over to his home and they congratulated him, and they were giving praise to his stallion. And the farmer said, who knows what is good or what is bad? So the neighbors, they thought that was interesting. Okay, that's what it is. Well, word starts to spread that this stallion has won this prize, won this contest. And in the dark of night, thieves come onto the farmer's property and they steal the stallion away. The next morning, his neighbors, the villagers, they find out about this. They're devastated. They're feeling such loss for this farmer. Like, his prize stallion was stolen. But the farmer says, who knows what is good or what is bad? Well, fast forward, the stallion finds a way to break out of his pen that the thieves have him in. And on his way, finding his way back to the farmer's property, he befriends several mares, and in the process brings them along back to the farm. So the farmer now has more mares, great to breed with this strong prize-winning stallion. And this is amazing. So the farmers talking to the neighbors are thrilled for him. But again, he's like, who knows what is good and what is bad? Well, his older son decides to try and tame one of the mares. And in the process of doing so, the mare's a little unwieldy, pretty wild, and the son gets bucked off and breaks his leg. So this is hard for the farmer, right? Because the son provides a lot of labor on the farm, helps with raising the horses, training them, and the neighbors again come over and, oh my gosh, we're so sorry that your son broke your leg. The farmer yet again says, who knows what is good and what is bad? And by the way, this is a really eventful village, right? There's a lot going on for this farmer. I love this fable. So several weeks later, soldiers from the army come through seeking all able-bodied young men to conscript them into the army to fight a war. His son is still recovering from the broken leg, so that he can't be conscripted. So what does the farmer say? You could say it with me now, right? Who knows what is good and what is bad? But the point here is sometimes what we initially perceive to be bad luck can turn into good luck. What's a little bit different between this fable from China and the positive intelligence approach is, with the story in China, that the farmer's pretty passive, right? He's really neutral with all of this. With positive intelligence, we are actively seeking to activate and engage the sage to intentionally use all of the sage powers, our creativity, our empathy, our resilience, and so on. And I think about the stallion story a lot this year, because when COVID hit and our original plans to travel through Southern Europe and go to Latin America were out the window, eventually I realized, who knows what is good and what is bad? Because fast forward to this moment, I have been able to spend 7 weeks with my family in beautiful Colorado, hiking and mountain biking and exploring the state where my husband and I actually plan to retire. So I really, really resonate with the story, and I hope that you've gotten a lot of value out of it as well. Who knows what is good and what is bad? So here's a question that I often hear, which is, which perspective is true? Right? Is it the saboteur perspective, or is it the sage perspective? Right? Are things really bad, or could this challenging situation of the pandemic potentially be a gift? And the reality is that it's whatever you believe, whatever you choose to believe. There is the ability with human beings, with our brains, to consciously choose to make a shift. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So if you are really wanting to see greater positivity, benefit, generate greater results, and see happiness in your life, you can choose to strengthen your mental muscles so that you are in the sage mode more and more and seeing a positive vortex of benefit building and building over time. So let's take a look next at self-command. This is the third of the 3 mental muscles that we build in this positive intelligence model. Now, at the heart of it is something called PQ reps. So you may already know, if you've taken the assessment by now, PQ stands for positive intelligence quotient. It's similar to IQ or EQ, but here positive intelligence quotient. And the way that we build mental muscle in this model is with 10-second reps. So you could think that with physical fitness, you want to grab a weight and you want to do reps to strengthen your bicep. And so this weight here is a simple light 3-pound weight. Like maybe that's the kind of mental fitness you need to handle everyday stressors. But when it comes to actually handling the kind of stressors that we've all been under this year, you need to be repping with 100-pound weights, maybe 500-pound weights. You really need to strengthen your mental fitness. So I'm going to share with you now what it is that this 10-second rep is actually like. So I want to invite you to do it with me, and Laura and Jason, I'm watching you. So I want you to take your thumb and first finger and gently begin to glide them over each other. And direct your attention, more and more of your mind's attention, to what it actually feels like to glide that finger and thumb gently over one another. Noticing the textures there. Perhaps you can even begin to discern the pattern of your fingerprints. Notice temperature. Notice maybe pressure or pulsation or any other sensations there. And that took just about 10 seconds. So maybe you want to keep doing that, or you can release your hand. If you were to look at your brain under an fMRI machine, you would see just within 10 seconds, ever so slightly, that brain activity shifts from the survivor saboteur parts of the brain to the sage parts of the brain, including that empathy circuitry. Now, you're not going to make a lot of impact with just one 10-second PQ rep. But what we've discovered with the research with positive intelligence is that with daily intensive practices over a 6 to 8 week period, you actually rewire your brain so that it becomes more automatic that in the face of challenges and stress, you more quickly switch from the saboteur parts of the brain to the sage parts of the brain, allowing you to actually use the best parts of you for creativity, resilience, positivity, and so on. So these little reps are at the core of the practice of positive intelligence. And if you went and explored further on the Positive Intelligence website and saw some of the resources there, there were some samples that you could follow there. So if you didn't catch that, you can go back and find out more about them. But there are hundreds of kinds of PQ reps. There are these, which are called touch or tactile reps. There are auditory reps, visual reps, tense and relax reps. And if you're familiar with meditation and mindfulness, if you've had a practice of those yourself, this is going to sound a little bit familiar, right? You've experienced the shift of things in your brain. What you can think of as mindfulness and meditation are like specialized forms of PQ reps. But what's different here is that you don't need to be a lifelong practitioner of meditation to get this benefit, right? This can happen in 10 seconds and with this vigorous practice over 6 to 8 weeks. And PQ reps are portable. You can use them in the middle of a meeting, of a challenging performance situation. If you are an athlete, you're at the free throw line, it's down to the buzzer, and you have the ball to make the shot. You can have access immediately, within a second, to sage powers, so that instead of being stressed and anxious, thinking, oh my gosh, it's the last shot of the game, it's down to the buzzer, if I don't make this, my fans are going to hate me, my team's going to hate me, I'm going to get cut from the team. Instead, with this intercept of the saboteur, shifting to sage and the strength of the self-command muscle, you'll be in sage and be like, this is amazing. This is my moment. I am the one. I have the skill and the talent to make this shot, and we are going to win. And that is critical. so that you can, through the self-command, intentionally be in the zone whenever you need to be in the zone. It's not because you wore your favorite boxer shorts, Michael Jordan, or you had a special trinket from your girlfriend or your wife on the court. It's because you had access within yourself to this power. And that is what is so amazing about this model. So I want to talk a little bit about just how simple this is, and I'm going to summarize it for you here right now, is that all you have to do is catch yourself in a negative state, any negative emotion whatsoever, stress, anxiety, shame, overwhelm. Stop. Just stop. Recognize you're in saboteur mode. In the moment, it doesn't even need to be clear which saboteur is up to this nasty business. Just stop. That's the intercept of the saboteur. Then do some PQ reps. Breathe, tactile reps. Maybe you gently glide your hands over one another. Maybe you gently scrunch your toes and your socks and your shoes on the floor, but you're bringing yourself back in your body. You're shifting brain activity to the sage parts of the brain. And then assume that sage perspective, right? That every outcome, every challenge, every situation can be converted into a gift and opportunity. What can I learn from this restriction that has been imposed upon me by the quarantine and coronavirus? What is it that I can get out of this? How can I look differently at my business when I can't open my retail space or bring clients into my office space? How can I engage differently with technology? What are the lessons that can come, the gifts that can come from the current challenges? And that's when you activate one or more of the sage powers, like empathy, like creativity, and you are grounded. You are operating with this beautiful, calm, clear-headed focus. So this is the simplicity of the operating system. And I hope you can take a screenshot for yourself. Just remember that you can do this for yourself anytime, anywhere. It doesn't have to be on a meditation cushion in a dedicated room. It can be in the middle of a meeting, in the middle of a challenge, in the middle of an argument with a loved one. Stop, do some PQ reps, shift to sage, and reflect. What can be the gift or opportunity from the situation? So there probably is some doubt in your mind, and I wouldn't be surprised because I had it too at the beginning of this, of like, is it really possible? Can I really shift like this in the middle of tough situations? And the reality is that yes, you can. The distinction here is how quickly and how deeply that shift happens for you, because this is dependent upon the strength of your mental muscle. And as I mentioned before, just in one 10-second rep, you might see a little shift on that fMRI machine, but it's with daily, intensive, regular practice that you can do this. So I'm just going to do a time check here to see if I have time to share a story, and I do. Great. So put yourself in a typical situation in your household. Let's say that you're in a partnership or a marriage. Or maybe you have a best friend or a roommate, or you're going to reflect back on when you were living with somebody intensively on a daily basis. And they were squeezing that tube of toothpaste in the middle, driving you nuts every time, leaving toothpaste everywhere, not putting the cap back on. You were in saboteur mode constantly. And the controller in you that wanted to take control and have it go the way you wanted, to follow your vision, was really stressed and struggling. Catch yourself, right, in that toothpaste tube moment. Do some PQ reps. Shift into sage. And bring a kind of beginner's mind curiosity, like, I wonder why my partner, my spouse, squeezes the toothpaste tube in the middle and doesn't do what I do, which is every time I put the top back on, I roll the tube from the end to make sure I'm maximizing every little bit of toothpaste and nothing's getting lost. But why does my partner do it differently? Why does my spouse do it differently? Now, in the middle of the conflict, where every time you're at the sink brushing teeth and you're like frustrated that your spouse is doing this, that frustration is showing. Maybe you grunt, maybe you make some comments about, why do you always do that with the toothpaste tube? The reality is that in a romantic relationship, most often you are partnered with somebody who has the opposite type of saboteur, because we're attracted to people who have a softer version of our strong saboteurs. So for a controller, somebody with a strong controller saboteur, most likely they've partnered with somebody who has a strong avoider or pleaser saboteur. So because that, let's say that partner, that spouse has an avoider, strong avoider, they're not going to directly engage in conflict with you about this toothpaste tube. No way. They're going to avoid it, not deal with it. So when you do take those PQ reps and shift into sage mode, you have to engage with empathy and put yourself in your spouse's shoes and bring that curiosity, like, honey, sweetie, why is it that you don't squeeze the toothpaste tube from the bottom and roll it up? Who knows what you'll find out, right? This is a very simple everyday situation that you can apply elsewhere. But maybe your spouse is going to say, well, I've tried a lot of different ways before, and I just found that this was the most efficient. It required the least amount of time and the least amount of energy. Maybe it works for them. Maybe in the process of having this exploratory conversation and shifting to sage, a new solution or a new outcome comes to mind, such as, let's get 2 tubes of toothpaste and you do it your way, I'll do it my way. Maybe you're inspired to stop rolling it from the bottom and you're going to squeeze it in the middle too. Who knows, right? The point is, don't worry about what the actual outcome of solution might be, but shift into sage and allow the creativity, the empathy, the powers of the sage to bring new awareness about what's possible. So I know that's a little bit funny, it's everyday situation, but there's so much happening in our lives right now that cause stress, cause conflict, that put you into saboteur mode, especially as the elections are coming up. And there's so much uncertainty and expectation about how whoever gets elected is going to impact the economy, your family, the situation with COVID, and on and on. It's out of your control other than the fact that you can vote. So take the time, maybe you do a social media detox over the next week, whatever it is your sage is saying, to shift into sage so you can be more in that grounded, clear-headed, laser-focused sage mode so that you're not stressing out, you're not in anxiety, and you're also not infecting others. Because what happens in the brain is we have something called mirror neurons. So mirror, like you look in the mirror to see your reflection. A mirror neuron, it engages somebody else, it entrains somebody else to go along with your emotional state, right? It's why we think of gregarious, more loud voice leaders as being infectious, right? As being able to spread a vision. But if you're in negative saboteur mode, or you're with somebody who is, or watching the news or reading a blog post that's very negative, you can get triggered into saboteur mode. So be really cautious in any circumstance and situation about the mirror neurons, and use your PQ rep, right, to shift back into sage. So with this model, if you want to see the positive impact, that long-term change in your wiring of your brain, literally through neuroplasticity, you'll be rewiring your brain through this practice. It takes practice, right? It takes daily practice, and the research has shown it takes daily practice intensively, 15 minutes a day for 6 to 8 weeks to see the change. And it's more than just insight, right? If you have attended a workshop, read a book, seen a YouTube video or a TEDx talk, and then immediately inspired, had new insights that told you, I'm going to make a change right now in how I'm showing up and performing as a leader, and how I'm running my business, and how I'm engaging with my loved ones. Insight is only 20% of this pie, right? You have to actually strengthen the muscles to implement the insight and see the long-term behavior changes you want. And that's why you probably have a lot of old binders on the shelf. You have a lot of videos that you never rewatch from courses that you took. You might even have certifications that you haven't gone back and reviewed the material because you didn't strengthen the mental muscles. And that's what's so important about this approach with positive intelligence, is that you strengthen your saboteur interceptor, your sage, and your self-command muscles through this practice. And what it really requires is not only you deciding that you want to do it, but realizing that you can't just do it a little bit here and there, right? If you're trying to defeat a gang of 10 bandits, you can't just send in one fighter per day and see how it goes, right? I envision in my mind that you are entering a thick jungle that's overgrown, that no animal, no human has walked through in centuries. And you have to get your machete out. You have to hack back and forth intensively, regularly, to carve a new path. And that's what's happening when you practice the PQ reps intensively. Your brain is forming new neural patterns, new connections between the synapses. So you can't just send in one of those fighters. You got to send in all your fighters all at once to defeat those bandits. And again, it's 15 minutes a day for 6 to 8 weeks. So for me, I've seen a huge impact in how I show up as a business owner and how I engage with my team members, with my vendors and contractors. I have a strong stickler among other strong saboteurs, and my stickler likes things to be just so. But it was being overused and abused, so that in every single situation that every client interaction, everything that was happening behind the scenes with my operations team, I had to be on top of every detail, and it was stressing me out and it was stressing my team out. And once I learned how to use this approach to weaken my stickler, it freed up my energy to focus on more creativity, more customer service, really the more high value activities in my business. My team members are much happier that I'm not bugging them so much about dotting every I and crossing every T. I've also seen a huge impact from my clients. I have clients who I've coached for months, and some I have coached for years. And every once in a while we hit a barrier. There's some internal stumbling block that the client can't figure out, and I can't get in their head. I can't hear the voices in their head. They can't get around, and I can't help them with that. Coaching can only go so far. But since they have taken the saboteur assessment, we've been able to identify and name the saboteurs, understand their thought patterns, how they're typically trying to get up into trouble in my clients' lives. We have, through this PQ practice, been able to weaken those saboteurs. And so in one case, I have a client who's been seeking a promotion within her company. Those saboteurs have been telling her she can't do it, she's not good enough, she doesn't have an experience, she doesn't have the right credentials. She's overcome that. And not only has she secured that promotion already, but she's already seeking for the next level. I have another client who has been worried about the performance of his business throughout all of this and the impact on his ability to have his operations running smoothly and fully. And through this practice, he's been able to quiet his anxiety enough that he's no longer waking up at 3 and 4 in the morning sweating, which was literally actually happening to him. He's able to now be more present and grounded with his family in the morning, and he's able to be more effective in his decision-making with his team. So it doesn't matter which domain of your life you're focusing on, the impact has a very immediate, positive result that you will see and others around you will see, and trust me, will be grateful for. Right now, I have a mix of 10 professionals in private business, academia, and nonprofit, all leaders going through this program. They've been split into 3 pods working together, and I've been seeing great results with them, including with one of my clients who's in that group, who's a entrepreneur. She just decided to exit her business and to start a new business. I also have a group of 4 family members, 3 generations, a retired CEO, 2 of his adult children, and his oldest grandson going through this program. And I even have a married couple who are in a pod together who have said it's been phenomenal to go through this together and have a new vocabulary to quiet the saboteurs. And they've seen more and more of that sage come out in their relationship, because when you're first meeting somebody, whether it's you're hiring a new employee, a new vendor, you're starting a new romantic relationship, your sage is strong and you're attracted to the sage in each other. So by weakening the saboteurs, you're giving yourself a chance to really let that sage sing. Just a sec. So what I want to do for you is, if you want to go beyond the assessment that you took and go deeper with the 6-week course, I want to make it really easy for you to take the course. I've set up for you a a webpage that you can go to get more information. But first, let me tell you a little bit about what's involved. It takes place in less than 2 months. It's a 6+ week duration. You'll watch 1 hourly video once a week, and you can do it on demand on your own time over the weekend, Saturday, Sunday, or Monday. You'll also meet with your pod. You'll be in a pod with 3 to 5 other people seeking to strengthen their mental fitness. And that pod meeting will be live on Zoom or WebEx or another video platform. And that happens at the beginning of each week. So you can debrief the material from the course each week. You'll practice in the Positive Intelligence app every day, actively Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, in the middle of life, in the middle of challenges. So again, it's not something you're doing on your meditation cushion in the corner. It's something you're actively integrating into your life. You'll have access to the book, both an audio version and a digital version. And through the app, you'll receive mental fitness coaching for the entire year. So this is what's involved in the program. And if you're interested, you will go to this page on my website, erinowen.com/29Bison. All the details on the program are there, so you can learn more about it, what's involved. A lot of what I've shared today, you'll see summarized. If you want to move forward and do it with this group that's going to come out of today's meeting, we invite you to register by November 6th. That's a week from Friday. And then we'll get started right away. You'll have your welcome call on Wednesday, November 11th, and that's on demand. You can listen to it all at once or in pieces over the course of that day to lay the groundwork, answer all your questions of how you start the program with clarity and ease. And also, I have a lot of pro tips on how to get the most out of the course because I've taken it and I've taken a lot of clients through it. Your first weekly video will be available that following Saturday. And you're going to participate with at least 2 others. These might be team members, colleagues. Maybe you want to invite clients or customers, could be friends or family. And in essence, you're forming an accountability pod where you're going to support each other through the process with guidance from the program so that you have someone to talk through the questions with. You can share your insights, what you're learning, and you're going to learn in a safe space so that you're practicing these skills and strengthening your sage. Maybe not live with family interactions or with others yet, but you're going to have that safe space to practice everything in the course. And I've talked to Laura and Jason about this, I've set up a discount code so that if you want to take the course this time around, discount code is 29Bison 2020. So the name of this community, 29Bison, plus the year 2020, and that'll give you 50% off of the course fee. So I'm going to leave it there for now. I am happy to answer any more questions. I'm happy to tell more stories of the impact this has had on clients. Laura and Jason, if there have been any questions in the chat box, or is there anything that you want to ask me before we wrap up today?
So I have one question, and I encourage anyone else who's on the call to send additional questions in via the Q&A or chat feature. My question is, are our saboteurs stable, or do they change? Are they context or life cycle specific?
That is a great question. So generally, if you wanted to do this program and then retake the assessment, after a couple of months, you will see a reduction in the strength of your saboteurs. But what I see with clients is that certain saboteurs are stronger in certain domains of their lives. So for example, right now I have a senior vice president for risk and safety at a pharma company. She went through the program and is in the grow mode now. She saw her stickler come out much more strong at home with her daughters than it was at work, even though, right, stickler you think would have that strength side is really good for risk and safety, but the saboteur side of it was really coming out more with her family. I have another client who owns a nationwide business. It's a family-owned business. He is seeing that it's really hard for his controller to let go. But as it's begun to weaken, he's been able to engage and be a little bit more open and sharing with his team members. And he's seeing that his team members are more positive. They're sharing more about how they're doing. He's able to support them in different ways based on what they're struggling with now that everybody's remote with COVID. So it is and can be domain specific in terms of where there's stronger play of the saboteurs.
And where do those saboteurs come from?
It's a great question. So we certainly are born into the world with our innate nature, right? So I know for sure that my older son definitely has a stronger stickler and avoider, and that's kind of been there a little bit over time. My younger son tends to be more of a pleaser. Those aspects, the strength side of those saboteurs have been there, right, since they were young. But for most of us, if not all of us, it's the circumstances of our life with our family of origin, with key experiences that have shaped us through teenage years, early 20s, that have really honed and strengthened the saboteur side, especially with stressful events.
Super helpful, thank you. We've had a number of folks ask for information about the assessment. If you hadn't already taken it, Jason's loaded it up into the chat feature, so it's there for everyone to access. We have just a minute or so left. If there are any additional questions, or Erin, if there's anything you think you'd like to share with the group before we sign off, we have recorded this event. We will make sure that it is available on our YouTube page, and we will share it out with all of you that have signed up so you can refresh yourself on these monsters. It's always good to tame the monsters, and interesting to know where they come from. And Erin, I think the thing that I love about this particular approach is that we can look at the world accessing and accepting who we are in our very nature and believing that there is a bright side to that, rather than casting off those things that are our weaknesses, recognizing that these are just an overuse of the capacities we have to be really good, positive, successful human beings, and tap into that capability.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I have one business owner colleague in the Philippines who's had his entire team of 28 people do this, and he's observed some patterns, right? And it's been a reflection of who he is, the leader, and how a company is shaped by a leader, right? So it can be used as an individual, as a team. It can be used for culture change in an organization. It's a really powerful model. And if you haven't taken the assessment yet, I know Jason's sharing that with you in the chat box. Also on this page, 29Bison page, there is step-by-step information on how to register for the course, including links to take the assessment and to input your results into the form. Because when it comes to pod formation, if people are not intentionally choosing who they want to be in a pod with, when I form the pods, I make sure that I have a variety of saboteurs so that we don't have, for example, 3 avoiders, strong avoiders in one pod together. But thank you so much, Laura. Thank you, Jason, for inviting me to be part of this event. I hope that everything that you've learned has given you not only great insight, but inspiration to move forward with mental fitness and strengthening the 3 core muscles. Certainly, we all need you to be stronger in the world with everything that's going on right now. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, Erin. This was fabulous. And to all of you who have tuned in with us this afternoon, we thank you for your time and your attention. And we wish you all the best as you continue on your path toward mental fitness and positive intelligence. Thanks, Erin. Be well.
Bye, everyone.
Bye now.